Hello, and welcome to Black History for Sleep. Tonight, we invite you to rest, to feel the weight of the day release from your shoulders as we journey back in time together. Let your mind soften, let your body grow heavy, and allow the gentle rhythm of this story to guide you toward a deep and peaceful sleep. There is no need to hold on to your thoughts. Simply allow them to drift away like clouds passing in a quiet sky. Your only task now is to breathe and to listen. We are here to honor the quiet corners of history, the stories of resilience and dignity that are often left untold. And as you listen, you not only learn, but you also create a space for profound rest. Before we begin our journey tonight, if you find comfort in these stories, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps these quiet histories find others who need them. Now, settle in. Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath in. And as you exhale, let go. Let us travel to the coast of France, in the midst of the Great War, where your story, a story of quiet strength and profound purpose, is about to unfold. You are a black nurse, and you have just arrived. The air that greets you is unlike any you have ever known. It is thick with the scent of salt from the sea you have just crossed, an endless churning expanse of gray water that for weeks separated you from everything familiar. But underneath the salt there is another scent, ancient and green. It is the smell of France, damp earth, wet stone, and the distant, almost imperceptible fragrance of wood smoke and rain-soaked fields. You stand on the docks of Brest, a port city that feels both weary and wired, humming with a nervous energy that seems to vibrate up from the cobblestones beneath your feet. You pull your woolen cloak tighter around your shoulders. The fabric is coarse, practical, a deep somber blue issued by the Army Nurse Corps. It feels heavy, a tangible weight that anchors you to this new, uncertain reality. For so long this was just a dream. A prayer whispered in the quiet of your room back home in America. The fight to be here. The letters written. The standards you had to exceed again and again just to be considered. The Red Cross had said no, not to women of color. But the Army, facing a desperate shortage of nurses and the ravages of the influenza pandemic on top of war, finally said yes. And so, you are here. One of only a handful of black women officially permitted to serve, to care for your own, the soldiers, the black soldiers of the American Expeditionary Forces. That was the condition. You would not tend to white soldiers. A line drawn in the sand, even here, thousands of miles from the suffocating grip of Jim Crow. But you are here. And that, for now, is enough. It has to be. You take a slow, steadying breath, feeling the cool, damp air fill your lungs. It feels different from the air back home, thinner somehow, and carrying with it the whispers of a history that stretches back centuries. The buildings that line the harbor are tall and narrow, their slate roofs glistening with a fine mist. They huddle together as if for warmth, their windows like tired eyes watching the endless procession of ships, of soldiers, of supplies. Everything is in motion. Men in khaki uniforms shout orders in English, their voices sharp and urgent. French dockworkers, their faces weathered and creased, call to one another in a language that flows like music, a stark contrast to the clipped, authoritative tones of the Americans. The soundscape is a symphony of purpose and chaos. The groan of heavy cranes, lifting crates from the bellies of ships, the rumble of military trucks on the uneven streets, the distant clang of a ship's bell, and beneath it all, the constant, rhythmic lapping of the water against the stone quayside. It is overwhelming, and yet, within you, there is a quiet, steady calm, a stillness you have cultivated over years of study, of practice, of preparing for a moment just like this. You feel a gentle touch on your arm and you turn. It is another nurse, one of the women you crossed the ocean with. Her name is Ada, and her eyes, dark and intelligent, reflect the same mixture of awe and apprehension that you feel in your own heart. She doesn't speak. She doesn't have to. In her gaze you see a shared understanding, the unspoken reality of your presence here. you are pioneers, walking a path no one has laid out for you. You are needed, but not entirely wanted. Together, you and the small group of nurses are guided through the bustling streets. Your sensible, low-heeled shoes make a soft, rhythmic sound on the wet cobblestones. You keep your gaze steady, looking straight ahead, a mask of professional calm fixed on your face. You learned long ago how to carry yourself, how to command respect through posture and presence alone. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes forward. Do not show them any weakness. Do not give them any reason to doubt your competence, your resolve. The people of Brest watch you pass. Their expressions are a mixture of curiosity and weariness. They have seen so many soldiers from so many lands, tall, handsome Senegalese men in their French uniforms, British Tommies with their cheerful, sometimes boisterous energy, and now the Americans. But you are a different sight. Black women in the uniform of the U.S. Army, an anomaly, an impossibility to some. An old woman, her face a road map of wrinkles, stops sweeping her stoop to stare, her lips slightly parted. A group of children fall silent in their play, their eyes wide. You offer a small, polite nod and continue on your way, your focus unwavering. You are led to a temporary barracks, a long wooden building that smells of damp wool and carbolic soap. Inside, the air is cold. Rows of simple cots line the walls, each with a thin mattress and a neatly folded grey blanket. This is where you will wait for your assignment, for the orders that will send you to your hospital, to your work. You find an empty cot and place your small canvas bag at its foot. It contains everything you own here, a few personal items, a photograph of your family, its edges soft with handling, your Bible, a well-loved book of poetry, and of course your nursing tools, carefully wrapped in cloth, your thermometer, your scissors, your precious fountain pen for charting. You sit on the edge of the cot, the springs groaning softly beneath your weight. For the first time since stepping off the ship, you allow yourself a moment to simply be. You close your eyes, and in the relative quiet of the barracks, you can feel the phantom sway of the ocean, the memory of the ship's engine, a constant thrum that vibrated through your bones for weeks. The journey was difficult, the seas were rough, and the threat of German U-boats was a constant, unspoken fear that hung in the air. But there was also a sense of camaraderie that blossomed in the close quarters of your segregated section of the ship. You and the other nurses. You shared stories, you shared hopes, you braided each other's hair. You prayed together, your voices a low, harmonious murmur in the dark. You forged a bond that feels as strong and essential as a lifeline. You can hear them now, the other women, finding their own spaces in the barracks. The soft rustle of their clothes, the quiet murmur of their voices. You are not alone. You hold that thought like a warm stone in your hand. Hours pass, or perhaps it is only minutes. Time feels fluid, stretching and compressing in this strange new place. Finally, a white officer enters, his boots loud and heavy on the wooden floor. He carries a clipboard, and he does not meet your eyes as he reads out the names. He mispronounces most of them. When he calls your name, your voice is clear and steady as you reply, "Present." You are being assigned to Base Hospital Number 6, near a place called Talence, in the Bordeaux region. Far from the front lines, you realize. The most severely wounded men, the ones straight from the trenches, are not being sent to you. A familiar sting of disappointment, of frustration. You are a trained surgical nurse. You are capable of handling the most grievous injuries, but you are being sent to care for convalescing soldiers, men recovering from illness primarily. The German prisoners of war are also being sent there. Another line in the sand. You are deemed fit to care for the enemy, but not for the white American soldiers who fight alongside your brothers. You push the feeling down. You must. You focus on the mission, your purpose, to heal, to comfort, to serve. It does not matter who the patient is. A soul in need is a soul in need. This is the creed you live by. It is the core of your being as a nurse. The journey to Bordeaux is by train. The carriage is cold. The wooden bench is hard. You sit by the window watching the French countryside slide by. It is beautiful, in a way that aches. Rolling hills of green, even in the chill of late autumn. Quaint villages with stone houses and ancient churches, their steeples reaching for a sky the color of pearl. Vineyards, their leaves turning to gold and rust, stretch out in neat, endless rows. It is a world away from the gritty, industrial city you left behind. A world away from the segregated towns of home. And yet, the war is always present. You pass long trains carrying supplies and munitions, heading north. You see fields scarred with practice trenches. You see women and old men working the fields, their faces etched with a quiet, enduring sorrow. Every family here has been touched by this war. Every soul carries its weight. You lean your head against the cool glass of the window, the rhythmic clatter of the train wheels a soothing mantra. Click-clack, click-clack. You allow your mind to drift. You think of your training, the long hours spent in lecture halls, the endless drills on the ward, learning the precise art of making a hospital bed with tight, perfect corners, the smell of ether and iodine, the weight of a patient's trust. You remember your instructors at the Freedmen's Hospital School of Nursing, stern, brilliant women who demanded nothing less than perfection. They knew you would have to be twice as good, twice as knowledgeable, twice as composed. They were preparing you not just to be nurses, but to be warriors in your own right, to fight ignorance and prejudice with skill and compassion, and you are grateful for their rigor now. It is a suit of armor you wear. As the train moves further south, the light begins to change. It softens, turning golden as the afternoon sun breaks through the clouds. The air that seeps through the gaps in the window frame feels warmer, gentler. You are entering a different part of France, a place known for its wine, for its slower pace of life. When you finally arrive in Talence, it is nearly dusk. The station is small, quiet. A handful of army trucks are waiting to transport you to the hospital. The drive is short, winding through tree-lined streets. The hospital itself is a sprawling complex of buildings that were once part of a university. They are grand, imposing structures of stone, now repurposed for the machinery of war and healing. Your new home is another wooden barracks, nearly identical to the one in Brest, but it feels more permanent, more settled. You are shown to your quarters, which you will share with 3 other nurses. The space is small, cramped, but clean. There is a small pot-bellied stove in the center of the room for heat. You unpack your few belongings, placing the photograph of your family on the small wooden crate that serves as a bedside table. You look at their faces, your mother's proud smile, your father's steady gaze. They sacrifice so much for you to have this chance. You trace the edge of the photograph with your finger, a silent promise to make them proud. That first night, sleep does not come easily. The cot is lumpy, the blanket thin. The silence of the countryside is unnerving after the constant noise of the city and the train. It is a deep, profound quiet, punctuated only by the distant bark of a dog or the soft hoot of an owl. You lie on your back, staring up into the darkness, your hands clasped over your chest. You feel the enormity of it all pressing down on you, the weight of expectation, the burden of representation. You are not just a nurse, you are a symbol, a testament to the capabilities of your race. Every action you take, every word you speak will be scrutinized, judged. A wave of loneliness washes over you, cold and sharp. You are so far from home, so far from everything that is familiar and comforting. You think of your mother's cooking, the smell of baking bread. You think of the sound of the choir at your church on a Sunday morning, voices rising in harmony. You think of the easy laughter of your siblings. Tears prick at the corners of your eyes, but you do not let them fall. You cannot. You must be strong. You take a slow, deep breath, just as you were taught. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You focus on the sensation of the air filling your lungs, on the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You are a nurse. You have a purpose here. There are men who need your care, men who are sick and scared and far from their own homes, men who look like your father, your brothers, your neighbors. They are waiting for you. This thought is your anchor. It holds you steady in the sea of uncertainty. You cling to it. You repeat it to yourself, a silent prayer in the dark. I am here to serve. I am here to heal. Slowly, very slowly. The tension in your shoulders begins to ease. The tightness in your chest loosens. Your breathing deepens, becoming slower, more rhythmic. The quiet of the night no longer feels menacing. It feels peaceful. A soft blanket of calm settling over the weary world. You are in France. You are a nurse in the United States Army. Tomorrow your work begins. And as you finally begin to drift towards the shores of sleep, you feel not fear, but a profound and steady sense of peace. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The first light of morning comes softly, filtering through the single window of your small room in the barracks. It's a gentle gray light, carrying with it the chill of the dawn. You stir from a sleep that was surprisingly deep, the exhaustion of the journey finally claiming you in the late hours of the night. For a moment, you are disoriented. The unfamiliar ceiling, the scratchy wool of the blanket, the cool, damp air. It all reminds you, with a soft jolt, that you are not at home. You are in Talent's France. The sounds of the barracks slowly coming to life begin to fill the quiet. The soft creak of bed springs, a low murmur of voices from the next room, the clink of metal as someone attends to the stove. You lie still for a moment, gathering your thoughts, preparing yourself for the day ahead, your first day. You rise from the cot, your feet meeting the cold wooden floor. You move with a practiced quietness, mindful of the other women still sleeping in your shared space. You dress quickly, your fingers deftly handling the buttons of your uniform. The starched white apron, the blue dress, the cap that you will soon pin to your neatly styled hair. The uniform is your armor, but it is also a symbol of your service, and you wear it with a deep sense of pride and responsibility. You and the other nurses from your quarters make your way to the mess hall for breakfast. It is a separate, segregated space. The food is simple, but nourishing. Porridge, hard bread, and a bitter dark coffee that is more about warmth and caffeine than flavor. You eat slowly, methodically, aware of the eyes of the white officers and nurses who occasionally pass the doorway. You keep your focus on your food, on the quiet conversation with the women at your table. You talk about your hopes for the day, your anxieties. You offer each other small words of encouragement. You are a small island in a vast sea, and you must be each other's anchors. After the meal, you report to the head nurse for your assignments. She is a white woman, her face stern, her posture rigid. Her name is Matron Davis. She looks at your small group of black nurses, her expression unreadable. She holds a list, and she reads your names and your assigned wards without any preamble. Her voice is crisp, professional, but it lacks any warmth. You are assigned to Ward C, a medical ward. It is filled with soldiers recovering from the Spanish influenza, which is still sweeping through the camps with devastating force. The war has created the perfect conditions for the virus to thrive. Young men, crowded together, their immune systems weakened by stress, exhaustion, and malnutrition. You walk towards Ward C, your heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. The hospital is a maze of long corridors, the air thick with the ubiquitous smell of antiseptic. A clean, sharp scent that overlays a deeper, more troubling odor of sickness and human suffering. The floors are scrubbed clean, but you can feel the weight of the pain that has soaked into the very walls of this place. As you push open the doors to Ward C, the reality of your work hits you with full force. The ward is a long, cavernous room filled with row after row of cots, and on every cot there is a man. Some are sleeping, their breathing ragged and shallow. Others are awake, their eyes glassy with fever, staring blankly at the high ceiling. A few cough, a deep rattling sound that seems to tear through their chests. The air is warm and heavy, thick with the scent of fevered bodies and disinfectant. This is it. This is where you are needed. The fear, the loneliness, the frustration you felt before. It all recedes, replaced by a singular focus. The well-being of these men. A white nurse, her face pale with fatigue, gives you a curt nod as you enter. She points you to a corner of the ward. "Those are your patients," she says, her tone flat. "Check their vitals, give them water, make sure they're comfortable." You look at the men in your assigned section. They are black soldiers, the Buffalo Soldiers of the 92nd Infantry Division. Men who have been deemed unfit for the front lines, not because of inability, but because of policy. Men who have been relegated to labor battalions, digging ditches, loading cargo, burying the dead. And now they are fighting a different kind of war, a war against a silent, invisible enemy that attacks their bodies from within. You approach the first cot. The soldier is young, probably no older than 19. His face is drenched in sweat, his eyes closed. His breath comes in short, sharp gasps. You place your cool hand on his forehead, and he flinches at your touch, his eyes fluttering open. They are filled with confusion, with fear. "It's all right," you say, your voice low and soft. "I'm here to help. I'm one of your nurses." His eyes focus on your face, on your uniform, a flicker of recognition, of relief. He's so far from home, so sick. And here is a face that looks like his sister, his mother, a face from home. He visibly relaxes, his body sinking deeper into the thin mattress. "Water," he rasps, his voice barely a whisper. You take a clean cloth, dip it in a basin of cool water, and gently wipe his face. You lift a cup of water to his lips, supporting his head with your other hand. He drinks greedily. You can see the gratitude in his eyes. In that moment, there is no segregation. There is no prejudice. There is only a human connection, a caregiver and a patient. You move from cot to cot, your movements efficient and gentle. You take temperatures, you record pulses. You change sweat-soaked linens. You offer sips of water. You speak to the men in a calm, reassuring tone. You ask them where they're from. You listen to their stories, their fears. You are a conduit for a comfort they have been denied for so long. The work is grueling, physically and emotionally. Your back aches from bending over the low cots. Your hands become raw from the constant washing. And the sheer scale of the suffering is immense. For every man who seems to be improving, another takes a turn for the worse. You witness the terrible progression of the influenza, the fevers that rage, the lungs that fill with fluid, the bodies that simply give out exhausted by the fight. One of the men you care for is an older soldier, perhaps in his late 30s. His name is Sergeant Elias. He is delirious with fever, and in his delirium, he calls out for his wife, for his children. He speaks of his farm in Georgia, of the fields he needs to plow. You sit by his bedside, holding his hand, speaking to him softly, trying to pull him back from the precipice of his fever dreams. You tell him he is safe. You tell him he is strong. You tell him he needs to rest. In a moment of lucidity, he opens his eyes and looks at you. His gaze is clear and filled with a profound sadness. "They sent us all this way to die in a bed," he whispers, his voice thick with emotion. Your heart aches for him, for all of them. These men who answered the call to fight for a country that treats them as second-class citizens, who crossed an ocean to fight for freedoms they themselves do not fully enjoy. And now they are falling not to enemy bullets, but to a virus in a cold, foreign land. "You are not going to die, Sergeant," you say, your voice firm but gentle. "You are going to rest, you are going to heal, and you are going to go home. We are here to make sure of that." He holds your gaze for a long moment, and then he nods, a single, slow movement. He closes his eyes, and his breathing seems to deepen, to steady. Throughout the long day, you work in tandem with the other black nurses. You develop a silent rhythm, a seamless choreography of care. You support each other, a shared glance across the ward, a helping hand when lifting a patient, a quiet word of encouragement in the linen closet. You are a team. A sisterhood forged in the crucible of this ward. When your shift finally ends, you are bone-weary. Every muscle in your body aches. Your mind is a jumble of temperatures and pulses and the faces of the men you have cared for. You walk back to your barracks under a sky that is now filled with a soft purple twilight. The air is cool and clean, and you take deep breaths of it, trying to cleanse your lungs of the heavy atmosphere of the ward. You are too tired to eat. You simply want to lie down. You wash your face and hands in a basin of cold water, the shock of it, a welcome sensation. You change out of your uniform and into your simple nightgown. As you lie on your cot, the sounds of the ward still echo in your ears. The coughing, the groans of pain, the whispered pleas for water. You see the faces of the soldiers in the darkness, the young boy from Alabama, the sergeant from Georgia. You say a silent prayer for them, for their strength, for their healing. And you say a prayer for yourself, for the strength to return to that ward tomorrow and the day after that, for the strength to continue to be a beacon of hope in a place so filled with despair. You are a black nurse in World War I, and this is your purpose, this is your fight. And as sleep finally comes to claim you, it is not a retreat, but a preparation, a gathering of strength for the battles of the coming day. You drift off, your last waking thought a promise to the men in Ward C, the promise that you will be there when they wake. You will not abandon them. You are here. The days begin to blend into one another, a seamless flow of waking in the pre-dawn chill, dressing in the quiet solidarity of your small room, and walking the now familiar path to the mess hall, the gravel crunching softly under your sensible shoes. The coffee is always bitter, the bread is always hard, but the warmth of it in your belly is a small grounding comfort before you step into the world of Ward C. Each morning, as you push open the heavy ward doors, you take a silent, steadying breath. You prepare yourself for what lies beyond. The air inside is always the same, a thick, heavy blanket of human struggle. Yet, you are learning to find the nuances within it. You can distinguish the sharp, metallic scent of blood from the sour smell of infection. You recognize the specific, cloying sweetness of decaying tissue. These are not things you were ever taught in a textbook. They are the visceral language of this place, and you are becoming fluent. You no longer see just a sea of suffering faces. You see individuals. You know their names, their stories. There is Private Thomas from Chicago, a wiry, energetic man who used to work on the stockyards. The flu has laid him low, but his spirit remains stubbornly bright. He saves a piece of his bread for you each morning, a small, treasured gift that you accept with a grateful smile. He jokes with a raspy voice, his humor a small flickering candle in the gloom. You know that keeping his spirits up is as vital as the medicine you administer. Then there is Corporal Henderson, a quiet, thoughtful man from Mississippi, who was a school teacher before he enlisted. He rarely speaks, his eyes holding a deep, sorrowful wisdom. But he watches everything. He watches you as you move through the ward, your movements calm and efficient. One afternoon, as you are changing his linens, he speaks, his voice so low you have to lean in to hear. "My mother. She had hands like yours," he whispers. "Strong, but gentle." The simple words are a balm to your weary soul, a reminder that your touch, your presence, is a connection to a world of love and care that these men have been torn away from. And there is Sergeant Elias, the man from Georgia. He is slowly, painstakingly, pulling back from the feverish depths. His moments of lucidity are longer now. He still talks of his farm, but now with a wistful clarity rather than a delirious urgency. He tells you about the red clay soil, about the way the sun feels on your back during planting season. He describes his 2 young daughters, their laughter, the feel of their small hands in his. You become his audience, his confidant. In the quiet moments between taking temperatures and administering medications, you listen. You listen as he speaks of a home he isn't sure he'll ever see again. Your listening is a form of medicine in itself. It is a way of saying, "I see you. You are more than a soldier. You are more than a patient. You are a man with a life, with a history, with love." This, you know, is a truth the Army often forgets. Your relationship with the other nurses deepens, evolving from a professional camaraderie into a fierce, protective sisterhood. You learn each other's rhythms without speaking. You know that Ada, the nurse who greeted you on the docks, prefers to work with the most critical patients, her focus becoming laser-sharp in the face of crisis. You learn that another nurse, Mary, has a gift for soothing the men who are frightened or delirious, her low melodic voice a calming anchor in their storm of fever and fear. In the evenings, when your shift is done and you have returned to the relative peace of your barracks, you sit together. Sometimes you are too exhausted to speak, simply sharing the silence, finding comfort in each other's presence. Other times you talk, you share stories from the ward, the small victories, the heartbreaks. You unburden yourselves, sharing the weight so that no one has to carry it alone. Ada has a small portable phonograph, and on some nights she plays records she brought from home. The tinny, scratchy sound of a ragtime piano or the soaring voice of an early blues singer fills your small room. The music is a lifeline. It is a potent reminder of joy, of home, of a world outside these grey walls and endless cots. You close your eyes and let the music wash over you, and for a few precious moments you can almost forget the smell of carbolic soap and the sound of coughing that clings to you like a second skin. You learn to find moments of beauty and grace in the smallest of things. A sliver of afternoon sun that cuts through the tall ward window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air like tiny golden sprites. The vibrant green of the moss growing on the old stone wall outside the barracks. The kindness in the eyes of a Frenchwoman who works in the laundry, who always greets you with a warm "Bonjour, madame." And a genuine smile, untouched by the prejudice that taints so many of your other interactions. These small moments become your refuge. They are the counterpoint to the relentless suffering and death that is the daily reality of the ward. Because there is death. So much of it. You fight for every life. You pour every ounce of your skill and energy into pulling these men back from the brink. But the influenza is a merciless foe. You will never forget the first time you lose a patient. He is the young boy from Alabama, the one with the bright, hopeful eyes. He had been improving. His fever had broken, and he had even managed to eat a little broth. You had allowed yourself a flicker of hope. But then, one afternoon, his breathing became suddenly shallow. His skin took on a bluish tint. You and Ada work frantically, trying to clear his lungs, trying to get him to breathe. But it is no use. He slips away quietly, his body simply too weak to continue the fight. After you have performed the final somber duties of preparing his body, you retreat to the small, sterile utility room. You lean against the cool stone wall, your body trembling. You did everything right. You followed every procedure. But it wasn't enough. A wave of profound helplessness washes over you. You feel the sting of tears behind your eyes, hot and sharp. But you will not cry, not here. You take a deep, shuddering breath, pushing the grief down, locking it away in a quiet corner of your heart. You must. There are other men who need you. You cannot afford to fall apart. Ada finds you there. She places a hand on your shoulder, her touch firm and steady. She doesn't say anything. She just stands with you in the silence, her presence a solid, comforting weight. And in that shared silence, you find the strength to square your shoulders, to smooth the front of your apron, and to walk back into the ward. The work changes you. It has to. It strips away everything that is non-essential, leaving only the core of who you are. Your compassion deepens, but it is tempered by a necessary resilience. You learn to build walls around your heart, not to keep the men out, but to protect yourself from the constant barrage of pain. It is a delicate, exhausting balance. To be present, to be empathetic, but not to drown in the sorrow that surrounds you. Sometimes you receive letters from home. They are precious, tangible links to your old life. You read them over and over, your fingers tracing the familiar handwriting of your mother or your sister. They write about small, everyday things. The weather, the church bake sale, a neighbor's new baby. These small domestic details feel like they are from another planet. So far removed is your reality. You write back, your letters carefully censored by the army and by your own desire not to worry your family. You write about the beauty of the French countryside. You write about the camaraderie of the other nurses. You write about your sense of purpose. You do not write about death. You do not write about exhaustion. You do not write about the haunting look in the eyes of the men who know they will never go home. One day, you are given a new task. A group of German prisoners of war have fallen ill with the flu, and they need nursing care. Matron Davis assigns you and 2 other black nurses to their ward. The irony is not lost on you. You are not permitted to care for your own white American soldiers, but you are tasked with healing the German enemy. You walk to the prisoner's ward with a sense of trepidation. The ward is more heavily guarded. The atmosphere is tense. The German soldiers are young, most of them barely out of their teens. They watch you with suspicious, fearful eyes as you enter. They have been told that black people are savages, a cruel piece of propaganda to fuel their hatred. And now their lives are in your hands. You feel the weight of this moment. You have a choice. You could treat them with the cold, detached professionalism they expect, or you could show them something else. You choose compassion. You approach the first cot, where a young German soldier with blonde hair and terrified blue eyes is shivering violently. You offer him a small, gentle smile. You speak to him in the few words of German you have managed to learn. Ich bin hier, um zu helfen. I am here to help. You care for them with the same skill and tenderness you show your own men in Ward C. You cool their fevers, you bring them water, you treat their discomfort. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to break down the walls of hatred and fear. They begin to see you not as a caricature from a propaganda poster, but as a human being, a caregiver. One of the German prisoners, a boy named Karl, who speaks a little English, begins to talk to you. He tells you about his home in Bavaria, about his family's farm. His stories are so similar to the ones Sergeant Elias tells you. He misses his mother. He is scared of dying so far from home. In these quiet conversations, the lines of enmity blur. He is not the enemy. He is a sick, frightened boy. And you are a nurse. It is as simple and as profound as that. Your work with the German prisoners does not go unnoticed. Some of the white nurses and officers watch you with a mixture of confusion and disdain. They cannot understand why you would show such kindness to the enemy. They do not understand that your compassion is not a political statement. It is the very essence of your calling. It knows no uniform, no nationality, no race. Returning to Ward C after a shift with the prisoners feels like coming home. The faces of the black soldiers, their familiar greetings, the easy camaraderie. It is a sanctuary. They have heard where you have been working. Private Thomas, the Joker from Chicago, grins at you. His face still pale, but his eyes bright with mischief. Giving the Kaiser's boys a taste of real American care, huh, nurse? He rasps. You smile back at him. Just reminding them what civilization looks like, Private. His laughter turns into a cough, but he is still smiling. The atmosphere in Ward C, while still heavy with sickness, is also thick with a shared identity, a shared struggle. Here, you are not an anomaly. You are family. One evening, as you are making your final rounds, you stand by the window, looking out at the grounds of the hospital. The sun is setting, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of orange and pink. A gentle peace seems to be settling over the world. In the distance, you can hear the faint, melodic sound of a church bell. For a moment, the war feels very far away. You feel a presence beside you, and you turn to see Sergeant Elias. He is out of bed for the first time, leaning on a cane, but standing on his own 2 feet. He is thin, his uniform hanging loosely on his frame, but his eyes are clear and focused. He follows your gaze out the window. "It's a pretty evening," he says, his voice still a little weak but steady. "Yes, it is, Sergeant," you reply softly. He is quiet for a long moment, watching the last sliver of sun dip below the horizon. "I'm going to see that again," he says, more to himself than to you. "I'm going to sit on my own porch in Georgia and watch that sun go down. I'm going to feel that evening air on my skin." You look at his face, at the quiet determination etched there. You see the resilience of the human spirit, its incredible capacity to endure, to hope, even in the darkest of times. And you know, with a certainty that settles deep in your bones, that he is right. He will go home. "Yes, you will, Sergeant," you say. "You absolutely will." He turns to you and his eyes are filled with a gratitude so profound it needs no words. He simply nods, a gesture of deep respect and thanks. You finish your rounds, the echo of that moment warming you from the inside out. You walk back to your barracks under a canopy of stars, more brilliant than you have ever seen them. The air is cool and clean. You feel the deep, bone-deep weariness of the day, but underneath it, there is something else. A quiet sense of fulfillment, a profound sense of peace. You have found your rhythm in this strange, broken world. It is a rhythm of care, of compassion, of quiet resistance. You resist the prejudice that seeks to diminish you. You resist the despair that threatens to overwhelm you. You do it with your steady hands, with your calm voice, with your unwavering belief in the shared humanity of every soul you touch. As you slide into your cot, the familiar weight of the woolen blanket feels less like a burden and more like an embrace. The silence of the night no longer feels empty, but full. Full of the quiet strength of the women sleeping around you. Full of the hopeful dreams of the men you are fighting to save. Full of the enduring promise of another sunrise. You close your eyes, your breath deepening, slowing. You are a healer. You are a warrior. You are a light in the darkness. And as you drift into the deep restorative currents of sleep, you carry this truth with you, a steady flame in the quiet of your heart. The world has grown colder. The gentle golden light of autumn has given way to the stark silver chill of a French winter. When you wake now, the room is steeped in a profound darkness that feels as if it has seeped into the very wood of the barracks. The air that greets you is sharp and biting, and you can see your own breath plume in front of you as you swing your legs out of the cot. The small pot-bellied stove in the center of your room, which once sat dormant, is now the heart of your small world. The ritual of waking now includes one of you quietly, carefully, coaxing it back to life, the soft crackle of the kindling, a welcome sound in the deep silence of the morning. The walk to the ward is different, too. The ground is no longer just firm gravel, but often a thick, clinging mud that pulls at your shoes with each step. A persistent, fine drizzle seems to be the default state of the sky, hanging in the air and soaking into the wool of your cloak, making it feel even heavier. The beauty of the French countryside has transformed into something more somber, more melancholic. The vibrant vineyards are now skeletal rows of blackened vines, their twisted shapes like gnarled hands reaching from the earth. The trees are bare, their branches a dark, intricate lace against a perpetually grey sky. The world feels stripped down to its essentials, much like you do. Inside Ward C, the cold is a constant battle. Despite the coal stoves that glow red-hot at either end of the long room, a damp chill seems to perpetually linger in the air. You find yourself tucking the thin wool blankets more tightly around your patients, your fingers moving with an extra sense of urgency. The cold seeps into the bones, and you know it makes the men's aches more pronounced, their coughs deeper. The nature of the illnesses is shifting as well. While the great wave of influenza has crested, leaving behind a wake of loss and a handful of long, slow recoveries, new ailments have taken its place. Pneumonia, a frequent and deadly companion to the flu, settles in the weakened lungs of the soldiers. You fight it with what little you have, keeping the men warm, elevating their heads, encouraging them to breathe deeply, and offering the potent, steaming comfort of broths and teas. You have become an expert in creating warmth. You heat bricks in the stove, wrap them in thick cloth, and place them at the feet of the men whose circulation is poor. You brew endless pots of tea, the steam fogging the windows and briefly filling a small corner of the ward with the fragrant scent of herbs. These small acts of creating and preserving warmth feel like a direct fight against the encroaching cold, against the tendrils of death that seem to thrive in the damp and the dark. Sergeant Elias is a steady presence now. His physical strength is returning, slowly but surely. He has graduated from his cane and now walks the length of the ward with a slow, deliberate gait. Matron Davis would never officially allow it, but you and the other nurses have tacitly given him small duties. He helps fold linens, his large, rough hands surprisingly deft. He sits with the new arrivals, the men freshly gripped by fear and sickness, and speaks to them in his low, calming voice. He tells them, "You're in good hands here. These nurses, they're angels of mercy." Coming from him, a man who has walked through the valley of the shadow and is emerging on the other side, the words carry an immense weight. He is a living testament to hope, and his presence is a more powerful medicine than any you can dispense. The approach of Christmas casts a strange, poignant spell over the hospital. Back home, it would be a time of celebration, of family, of light and laughter. Here, it is a painful reminder of how far away home truly is. A deep wave of homesickness washes over the ward, more potent than any fever. You see it in the men's eyes, you hear it in the quiet sighs that punctuate the nights. You and the other black nurses decide you cannot let the season pass unmarked. You will create your own Christmas. It is an act of defiance, a refusal to let the grayness of this place extinguish every spark of joy. Your mission begins in secret. During your precious few hours of off-duty time, you set to work. Mary, who has a beautiful singing voice, begins to teach a small, informal choir of nurses and convalescing soldiers the familiar carols of home. Their voices, at first hesitant and weak, grow stronger each evening, a soft harmony drifting from a quiet corner of the mess hall. You and Ada take on the task of decorations. There is no tinsel, no brightly colored glass ornaments. You must use what you can find. You venture into the cold, damp woods that border the hospital grounds, your cloaks pulled tight against the wind. You gather pine boughs and holly, its bright red berries, a startling, joyful splash of color against the winter landscape. You collect pine cones, and with thread from your sewing kits, you string them into garlands. The French woman from the laundry, the one with the kind eyes whose name you have learned is Isabel, sees you gathering the greens. She understands immediately. The next day she quietly presents you with a small bundle of mistletoe tied with a bit of red ribbon she has saved. Pour la joie, she says, her smile warm and genuine, for the joy. This small act of kindness, of cross-cultural solidarity, feels like a precious gift. On Christmas Eve, after your shift is done, you transform a corner of Ward C. You hang the pine boughs and the pine cone garlands. You place the sprig of mistletoe over the doorway. It is not much, but in the dim light of the ward it feels magical. The scent of fresh pine fills the air, temporarily overpowering the smell of sickness. The choir gathers. Nurses and soldiers, black and white, standing side by side. The German prisoners in their separate ward can hear the music, and some of them quietly gather by the doors to listen. Mary's clear, strong voice leads them in Silent Night. The familiar melody, sung in English, then softly in German by one of the prisoners who knows the words to Stille Nacht, drifts through the long corridors of the hospital. For those few minutes, the war stops. The lines of division, nurse and patient, American and German, black and white, they blur and fade. There is only the music, the shared humanity, the collective ache of homesickness, and the universal longing for peace. You stand and listen, your heart full to bursting. You see tears tracking silently down the weathered cheeks of men who thought they had no tears left to shed. And you know that this is healing too. This moment of shared grace is as vital as any bandage, as potent as any medicine. The winter also brings new challenges with the hospital administration. Supplies are stretched thin. Coal is rationed. Fresh linens become scarcer. You notice that Ward C seems to be the last to receive its share. Your men are given the oldest, most threadbare blankets. The rations of coal for your stoves are smaller. It is a quiet, insidious form of neglect, a reflection of the same systemic prejudice you have always known. One morning, you arrive on the ward to find you have no clean sheets for the beds of 3 new patients, men who arrived in the night, feverish and drenched in sweat. You go to the central linen supply, and you are told there are none to be had, but you can see a stack of freshly laundered, neatly folded sheets on a shelf behind the stern-faced supply clerk. "Those are for the officers' ward," he says, his voice flat, dismissive. Something inside you, a place of quiet patience that you have cultivated for so long, finally snaps. It is not a loud, dramatic break, but a cold, clear hardening of your resolve. You look him directly in the eye, your gaze unwavering. "My men," you say, your voice low and steady, each word precise, "are soldiers in the United States Army. They are suffering. They are fighting for their lives. They are not less deserving of a clean bed than an officer is. I will not be leaving without sheets for them." You do not raise your voice. You do not plead. You simply state a fact, your presence radiating an authority that comes not from rank, but from absolute moral clarity. The clerk sputters. flustered by this quiet, immovable force. He is used to brushing off requests, to being in charge. He is not used to a black nurse refusing to back down. He tries to argue, but you do not engage. You simply stand there, your hands clasped in front of you, your gaze never leaving his. The silence stretches, becoming more uncomfortable for him with each passing second. Finally, with an exasperated sigh, he slams a small stack of sheets onto the counter. "Take them," he mutters, refusing to look at you. "Thank you," you say, your voice still perfectly calm. You take the sheets and walk away, your back straight, your head held high. When you return to the ward, Ada looks at you, her eyebrows raised. She saw you walk towards the supply office with a look of grim determination. You give her a small, almost imperceptible nod. A silent victory has been won. It is a small battle in a massive, unending war, but it matters. It matters to the men who will now have the simple, profound dignity of clean linens. This small act of resistance emboldens you. You begin to advocate more fiercely for your patients. You demand better rations. You argue for more coal. You learn the language of the bureaucracy, how to fill out the forms in triplicate, how to make your requests undeniable. You become a warrior, not just of medicine, but of logistics. Matron Davis watches you with a grudging, unspoken respect. She may not approve of your methods, but she cannot argue with your results. Your men in Ward C are faring better than they were before. The death rate, while still a tragic reality, has slowly begun to fall. One afternoon you are granted a rare few hours of leave, a brief respite from the relentless pressure of the hospital. You and Ada decide to walk into the nearby town of Talents. It is a chance to breathe different air, to see something other than the confines of the camp. The town is a tapestry of ancient stone buildings, narrow, winding streets and small shops. The people are reserved, their faces etched with the weariness of 4 long years of war. But their curiosity about you is gentle. Here, you are not met with the overt hostility or condescension you so often face from the white Americans. You are simply different, an object of interest. Children stop and stare, their eyes wide. Shopkeepers greet you with polite nods. You find a small boulangerie, the windows steamed from the warmth inside. The smell of baking bread is intoxicating, a scent so deeply comforting it almost brings tears to your eyes. You purchase a small loaf, your fingers delighting in its warmth as the baker wraps it in paper. You and Ada sit on a cold stone bench in the town square, breaking off pieces of the fresh, crusty bread. It is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. As you sit there, you watch the life of the town unfold. Women in black mourning dresses, old men playing checkers, a group of French soldiers, their blue uniforms faded and worn, laughing together. You are an observer, a visitor in this world. It is a world that has endured so much, a world that continues on with a quiet, stubborn resilience. And you realize that you are a part of that resilience now too. Returning to the hospital as dusk falls, you feel a strange sense of renewal. The brief journey into the outside world has given you a new perspective. It has reminded you that the hospital is not the entire world. There is life beyond its walls. There is a future. You step back into Ward C, the familiar smells and sounds washing over you. But it feels different tonight. Less like a prison of suffering and more like a sanctuary of determined hope. You greet your patients, your smile genuine, your spirit restored. That night, as you lie in your cot, you listen to the sound of the winter wind rattling the window pane. It is a lonely sound, but it no longer fills you with dread. You have found your warmth here, in the fierce sisterhood of your fellow nurses, in the grueling, sacred work of healing, in the quiet, shared moments of humanity that blossom like winter roses in the most unexpected of places. You are being forged in this crucible of cold and sickness and war. You are becoming harder, yes, but also more compassionate, stronger, but also more tender. You close your eyes, your breath falling into a slow, steady rhythm. You are not just surviving the winter, you are enduring, you are growing, and you are holding the light for those who are lost in the dark. Sleep comes gently, a soft blanket of peace, earned and deeply needed. You notice the change not as a sudden event, but as a series of small, quiet miracles. It begins with the light. One morning, as you walk from your barracks to the mess hall, you realize the pre-dawn darkness is no longer absolute. There is a soft, lavender hue bleeding into the eastern sky, a gentle promise that comes a few minutes earlier each day. The air, while still cool, has lost its sharp, biting edge. It feels softer, carrying on it a new scent, the smell of damp, awakening earth. Spring is arriving in France. It is a slow, tentative thaw, as if the land itself is cautiously testing the air after the long, hard winter. You see it in the tiny, vibrant green shoots pushing their way through the mud and dormant grass along the path. You see it in the buds that have begun to swell on the skeletal branches of the trees, tight little fists of life preparing to unfurl. You hear it in the mornings, a tentative bird song that grows bolder and more complex with each passing day. This gentle awakening of the world outside seems to send a quiet, hopeful signal through the walls of the hospital. The oppressive, melancholic weight of the winter begins to lift, ever so slightly. In Ward C, you notice the men are sleeping more soundly. The persistent, racking coughs that echoed through the long winter nights are less frequent. The men who are able to walk spend more time near the tall windows, their faces tilted towards the strengthening sun, soaking in its pale warmth like thirsty plants. The change brings with it a new kind of energy, a restless hope. The men talk more of home, but now their talk is less about a distant, impossible dream and more about a tangible future. They speak of planting season, of fishing trips, of the sweet taste of a strawberry picked fresh from the vine. They are beginning to imagine life after this, after the sickness, after the war. With this renewed hope comes news from the wider world, trickling in through week-old newspapers and letters that have journeyed across the sea. The news is a confusing, often painful mixture of pride and sorrow. You read of the heroic exploits of the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters, who have been fighting on the front lines under French command. The papers praise their bravery, their tenacity. You feel a surge of fierce pride for these men, your brothers, who are proving their valor to a world that has doubted their every ability. You cut out the articles and read them aloud in the ward, and the men listen with rapt attention, their chests swelling with a shared sense of dignity. But these stories of heroism are often printed alongside other darker news from back home. Stories of racial violence, of lynchings, of riots in cities where black families have moved seeking work and a better life. It is a dizzying, heartbreaking paradox. Black men are shedding their blood for democracy in the fields of France, while their families are being terrorized in the streets of America. You grapple with these conflicting realities in the quiet of the night. You lie on your cot, staring into the darkness, and you feel the immense complex weight of being a black woman in this moment in history. You feel both an immense pride and a profound, aching sorrow. How can you hold both of these truths at once? How do you reconcile fighting for a country that refuses to fight for you? You have no easy answers. You simply learn to carry the weight of it, to let it fuel your resolve. Your work here, in this ward, feels more important than ever. By healing these men, by tending to their bodies and their spirits, you are doing more than nursing. You are preserving the future of your people. You are sending these men home, not just healed, but whole, ready to continue the fight for true freedom on a different front. A new patient arrives in the ward, a young man named Private Samuel Jones. He has no fever, no cough, no visible wounds. His body is physically sound. But his eyes are ancient. They are hollowed out, haunted by things you can only imagine. He had come from a labor battalion much closer to the front, a group that was caught in an artillery barrage while digging trenches. He was buried alive for hours before being dug out. He does not speak. He sits on the edge of his cot for hours, staring at a fixed point on the floor. He flinches at any loud noise, a dropped tray, a door slamming in the corridor. At night, he does not sleep. You hear him, his soft, terrified whimpers in the dark. The other nurses are at a loss. He refuses food. He shrinks away from any touch. They call it shell shock. A wound of the mind, of the soul. You know instinctively that the usual methods of nursing will not work for him. He does not need his temperature taken. He needs something else. He needs safety. He needs patience. You begin to spend time with him, not as a nurse, but as a quiet presence. You bring a small stool and simply sit near his cot for a half hour each day. You do not talk to him. You do not try to make him eat. You simply sit. Sometimes you bring your mending, your hands busy with a needle and thread. Sometimes you just sit with your hands folded in your lap, your breathing slow and calm. You are creating a space for him, a space with no demands, no expectations. You are a steady, quiet anchor in his turbulent, silent world. For days he gives no sign that he is even aware of your presence. The other men in the ward watch, their expressions a mixture of pity and confusion. They give his cot a wide berth, as if his silence is a disease they might catch. Then one afternoon, as you sit mending a tear in a soldier's shirt, he speaks. His voice is a dry, rasping whisper, as if it has not been used in a very long time. "They didn't have faces," he says. "You do not look up from your sewing. You keep your movements slow and steady." "Who didn't have faces, Private?" you ask gently. "The men I was digging out, before they dug me out, the dirt. It took their faces." You continue your steady stitching. You do not offer empty reassurances. You do not tell him not to think about it. You simply receive his words. You create a safe place for them to land. "That must have been a terrible thing to see," you say, your voice soft and even. He says nothing more that day, but a tiny seed of trust has been planted. The next day, you bring him a cup of warm broth. You do not try to make him drink it. You simply place it on the small table beside his cot. You sit with him in your usual silence. After you have gone, another soldier tells you that he saw Samuel lift the cup and take a few small sips. It is a victory as significant as a fever breaking. Your work with Samuel becomes a slow, patient process of building bridges back to the world of the living. You learn that his mind is a minefield of triggers. The clatter of metal reminds him of shovels hitting rock. The smell of damp earth sends him into a trembling panic. You learn to approach him softly, to speak before you enter his line of sight, to move with a predictable gentleness. You are reteaching his nervous system that the world can be a safe place. One evening, there is a crisis. A fire breaks out in one of the storage sheds near the surgical ward, and in the chaos, a canister of ether is knocked over in an operating theater, where a white officer is undergoing emergency surgery. The room fills with flammable fumes, and the patient must be evacuated immediately in the middle of the procedure. The white nurses panic, unsure of what to do. The surgeon is shouting orders. You are nearby, returning from the mess hall. You hear the commotion, you see the fear, and your training takes over. Your mind becomes a place of absolute cold clarity. You push your way into the theater. "We have to move him now," you say, your voice cutting through the panic. "We need a gurney, and we need to keep that incision sterile." You take command. Your movements are swift and certain. You direct two other nurses to get the gurney. You grab a sterile drape to cover the open wound. You help the surgeon clamp the bleeders. You organize the transfer with a speed and efficiency that leaves everyone breathless. You help wheel the officer into an adjacent safe room where the surgeon can complete the operation. You stay, assisting him, your hands moving with practiced skill, anticipating his needs, passing him instruments before he even has to ask. When it is over, and the officer is safely stitched up and stable, there is a moment of stunned silence in the room. The surgeon, a major from Boston with cold, dismissive eyes you have seen before, looks at you. He looks at your hands, then at your face. The rigid lines of prejudice and rank seem to fall away, replaced by the pure, unadorned respect of one skilled professional for another. "I've never seen a nurse move that fast," he says, his voice quiet, filled with a grudging awe. "You saved his life. What's your name?" You meet his gaze, your own expression calm, professional. You tell him your name clearly and steadily. He just nods. "Well, thank you." The moment passes. The hierarchies of the hospital snap back into place. You are still a black nurse, and he is still a white officer. But something has shifted. A small crack has appeared in the wall of their prejudice. They have seen your skill. They cannot unsee it. You walk back toward C, your heart still beating fast from the adrenaline. You do not feel triumphant. You simply feel a quiet satisfaction in your own competence. You did what you were trained to do. You did what any good nurse would do. The fact that it was surprising to them is their burden, not yours. As spring deepens, the world becomes lush and green. The grounds of the hospital are no longer a sea of mud, but a carpet of vibrant grass, dotted with wildflowers. The air is sweet with the scent of blossoms. You take your recovering patients, like Sergeant Elias and even Samuel, for slow walks in the sunshine. You watch as the color returns to their faces, as the light returns to their eyes. You sit with Samuel on a bench under a blossoming chestnut tree. He has started talking more, in short, hesitant sentences. He tells you about his home in North Carolina, about his younger sister. He even smiles, a small, fleeting expression that transforms his face when a bright yellow butterfly lands on his hand. You are watching a man slowly, carefully, piecing his soul back together. And you know that you have been privileged to be a witness to it, to have helped lay the foundation for his healing. In these quiet moments of nascent spring, you find yourself thinking about your own future. The war will end. It must. And you will go home. But to what? Will you be able to unsee the things you have seen? Will you be able to forget the relative freedom you have experienced here, however constrained it may be? In France, you are a nurse, a professional, a leader. At home, will you once again be just a black woman, your opportunities limited, your skills questioned? The thought is a disquieting one. This experience has changed you. It has shown you your own strength, your own capacity. It has awakened a part of you that will not be content to be put back into a small confining box. You lie in your cot at night, listening to the gentle sounds of the spring evening outside your window, the chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl. You feel the deep, satisfying weariness from a day of meaningful work. You have faced down death, prejudice, and despair. You have held the hands of the dying and guided the lost back to the light. You do not know what the future holds, but you know who you are, and you know with a certainty that settles in your heart like a smooth, warm stone, that you will never be silent again. You have found your voice here, and you will carry it with you, wherever you go. Sleep comes easily now, a welcome friend at the end of the long day. It is a deep, restorative peace, earned in the service of life. The world is now saturated with green. The tentative shoots of early spring have given way to a riot of lush, confident life. The chestnut trees that line the hospital drive are covered in a thick canopy of leaves, their blossoms having fallen to create a soft, white carpet on the ground below. The air in the mornings is no longer just fresh, it's fragrant. It carries the sweet, heady perfume of roses from a nearby garden and the clean, herbal scent of lavender that grows wild in the fields. The sun is a warm, benevolent presence, its golden light slanting through the tall ward windows in the late afternoons, making the polished floors gleam. This blossoming of the world has a profound effect on the spirit of Ward C. It's as if the men, having survived the long, dark winter of their illness, are now being given a reward. Those who are strong enough spend their afternoons outside, sitting on benches in the sunshine, their faces tilted up to its warmth. The quiet, contemplative atmosphere of winter has been replaced by a low, cheerful hum of conversation and occasionally the sound of laughter. You watch Sergeant Elias as he teaches a group of younger soldiers how to play checkers with a board he has fashioned from a discarded wooden crate and bottle caps. He is no longer just a patient. He has become the unofficial elder of the ward. He moves with a newfound purpose, his posture straight, his presence commanding yet gentle. He listens to the younger men's worries about returning home, about the jobs they left behind, about the families who are waiting for them. He offers not easy answers, but a quiet, steady wisdom. The world ain't the same, you hear him tell one young private. And you ain't the same either. You're stronger than you think. You just gotta remember that when you get back. Private Samuel Jones, the boy who was lost in the silent prison of his trauma, has found a small patch of earth behind the barracks. No one told him to. He simply claimed it one day. You watch him from a distance, not wanting to disturb his solitary work. He spends hours there, turning over the soil with a trowel he borrowed from the groundskeeper. He is gentle, methodical, his hands moving with a quiet focus. He has planted a few seeds given to him by Isabel, the kind woman from the laundry. He is cultivating a garden, and you know with a certainty that fills your heart that as he tends to this small plot of earth, he is also tending to the wounded landscapes of his own mind. He is planting roots back into the world of the living. One day he approaches you, his eyes clear and direct, a stark contrast to the haunted, hollowed look he once had. He is holding out his hand. In his palm is a single, perfectly formed radish, its skin a vibrant red, its green top still attached. It is the first fruit of his labor. "For you, nurse," he says, his voice quiet but steady, "for sitting with me." You take the radish, its rough skin cool against your palm. It feels as sacred as any medal, as precious as any jewel. It is a symbol of a life reclaimed, of a soul finding its way back from the brink. You thank him, your own voice thick with an emotion you cannot name. Later that evening, you eat it, and its sharp, peppery, earthy taste is the taste of a miracle. The bond between you and the other nurses has settled into a deep, unspoken understanding. You are a family, forged in the crucible of this shared experience. You move around each other in the ward with an intuitive grace, anticipating each other's needs, offering support with a simple glance or a touch on the arm. Your shared quarters are a sanctuary, a place where the armor of professionalism can be laid aside. One rare, beautiful afternoon, you, Ada, and Mary are given a full day of leave. A whole day. It feels like an immense, almost unimaginable luxury. You decide not to squander a minute of it. You shed your stiff, practical uniforms and put on simple civilian dresses that you have carefully saved. The soft cotton feels strange and wonderful against your skin. Isabel has told you about a market in a small village a few miles away. You decide to walk. The journey itself is a joy. You walk along a quiet country lane, shaded by tall poplar trees. The air hums with the sound of bees, and the fields on either side are a tapestry of wildflowers, red poppies, blue cornflowers, and yellow buttercups. You talk and laugh, your voices light and free, unburdened for a few hours from the weight of the ward. You talk about your childhoods, your dreams before the war, the things you miss most about home. It is a conversation steeped in nostalgia, but also in a new awareness of how much you have all changed. The market is a vibrant, chaotic swirl of life. Farmers sell their produce from wooden carts, piles of fresh lettuce, bundles of bright orange carrots, and baskets of the first sweet strawberries of the season. You pool your money and buy a loaf of bread, a wedge of goat cheese, and a small basket of strawberries. You have a picnic under a large oak tree. The taste of the fresh, simple food and an explosion of flavor after months of bland army rations. As you sit there, watching the French families barter and gossip, you feel a strange sense of belonging and not belonging all at once. The French people are polite, even friendly, but you are still outsiders. And yet, you feel more at home here, sitting under this French oak tree with your sisters, than you often do in the segregated world of the American camp. Here, for a few hours, you are not just black nurses, you are just women, enjoying a beautiful day. It is a profound and deeply needed respite. But the war is never truly far away. As you walk back to the hospital in the late afternoon, a long train rumbles past on the nearby tracks, heading north. It is filled with American soldiers. But these are not wounded men returning from the front. They are fresh replacements. Their faces are young, unlined, full of a nervous bravado that cannot mask the fear in their eyes. They are heading towards the fighting, towards the meat grinder of the trenches. They cheer and whistle at you, but their cheers sound hollow. You, Ada, and Mary fall silent, your earlier lightheartedness evaporating in an instant. You give a solemn, respectful nod to the passing train. You are seeing the war from the other side now, not just healing its aftermath, but watching the endless supply of young bodies being fed into its maw. The sight is a sobering reminder of why you are here, of the work that is still to be done. That evening, the atmosphere in your room is more contemplative. Your day of freedom has given you a glimpse of the life that exists outside the war, but the train has reminded you that the war is not over. "What do you think you'll do?" Mary asks, her voice soft in the gathering twilight. "When are we going home?" Ada, ever the pragmatist, speaks first. "I'm going to go to medical school," she says, her voice full of a fierce determination. "I've seen enough male doctors mess things up to know I can do better. And what they're doing for shell shock, it's barbaric. We need a better way. We have to be the ones to find it." You are in awe of her ambition, her clarity. You look at your own hands. These hands have learned so much. They have brought comfort, eased pain, held the dying, and welcomed the healing. You think of your quiet victory in the supply room, of your command in the operating theater, of your patient work with Samuel. You have discovered a strength within yourself you never knew you possessed. "I don't know," you admit, your voice a whisper. "But I know I can't go back to the way things were. I can't go back to being quiet. I can't go back to making myself small." You look at your friends, their faces illuminated by the soft light of the lamp. This place, it has shown us what we are capable of. We can't let them make us forget that when we go back. The departure of Private Thomas, the Joker from Chicago, marks the end of an era in the ward. He is finally deemed fit enough to be transferred to a non-combat role elsewhere in France. His departure is a celebration. The men cheer for him, slapping him on the back. He makes a grand theatrical farewell speech, promising to write. But as you watch him walk out the door, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, you feel a pang of sadness. The ward community is a fluid, ever-changing thing. Men arrive broken, they heal, they leave, and you remain. You are the constant, the steady anchor in this endless tide of human suffering and recovery. Later that night, you find a small, crudely carved wooden bird on your nursing station, right next to your charts. You recognize the handiwork of Private Thomas. It is his farewell gift. You pick it up, its surface smooth from his whittling. It is a small, simple thing, but it is filled with so much meaning. It is a symbol of his gratitude, a token of the bond you formed. You take it back to your room and place it on the crate beside your bed, next to the photograph of your family. These two objects represent your worlds, the world you came from and the world you have built here. You are a bridge between them. As you lie down to sleep, the scent of lavender from the fields drifts in through the open window. The sounds of the night are gentle, peaceful. You feel a deep sense of purpose, a quiet contentment that settles deep in your bones. The future is uncertain. The journey home will be fraught with its own challenges. But tonight, you are at peace. You are a healer. You have found your calling, not just as a nurse, but as a quiet warrior, a keeper of hope. And as you close your eyes, your breath sinking with the gentle pulse of the sleeping world, you know you are exactly where you need to be. The gentle warmth of spring has intensified, graduating into the heavy, sweltering heat of a French summer. The sun is no longer a benevolent visitor. It is a relentless, dominating force. It beats down on the slate roofs of the hospital buildings, and the heat radiates back, making the air shimmer above the gravel paths. The lush green of the landscape has taken on a dusty, tired quality. The birds are quiet in the heat of the day, and a lazy, buzzing sound of insects is the constant soundtrack to the afternoons. In Ward C, the air is thick and stagnant. The tall windows are propped open as wide as they will go, but it offers little relief. There is no breeze, only the exchange of one wave of warm air for another. You find yourself constantly battling flies, which seem to thrive in the heat, their persistent buzzing a source of irritation for the already uncomfortable men. The smell of antiseptic now mingles with the smell of sweat and dust, creating a heavy, cloying atmosphere that clings to your clothes and hair. Your starched uniform, once a source of crisp, professional pride, now feels like a prison. The fabric sticks to your skin, and you can feel a constant trickle of perspiration down your back. You and the other nurses have taken to dabbing your temples and wrists with cool water from the basins, small moments of relief in the long, hot hours. The work is harder in the heat. The men are more restless, their fevers more dangerous. Dehydration is a constant threat, and you move through the ward with an endless supply of water, encouraging, even pleading with the men to drink. The long, draining summer mirrors a new phase in the ward's emotional life. The hopeful energy of spring has matured into a kind of weary endurance. The war has dragged on for so long, and the men have been sick for so long, that a deep, collective fatigue has set in. And yet, woven into this exhaustion is a new, fragile, and almost painful thread of hope. Rumors begin to circulate, carried by new arrivals, by ambulance drivers, by the occasional newspaper. They speak of a massive Allied offensive, of German lines finally breaking, of whole towns being liberated. The words "final push" are whispered in the corridors, in the mess hall, by the men sitting on the benches outside. At first, you dismiss it as the same kind of hopeful chatter that has surfaced and faded before. But this time feels different. There is a substance to the rumors, a consistency that is hard to ignore. The men in the ward follow the news with a desperate, hungry intensity. Sergeant Elias acquires a large map of France and pins it to a corkboard. Each day he carefully moves a small collection of pins, marking the reported advances of the Allied forces. The men gather around the map, their faces serious, their discussions filled with military strategy and place names that sound both foreign and deeply significant. Somme, Amiens, Marne. The map becomes a shrine to their hope, a tangible representation of their desire for this endless war to finally be over. This rising hope creates a new and complex nursing challenge. You begin to notice it in a young soldier named Private Miller. His shrapnel wounds are healing well. Physically, he is almost ready to be discharged from the ward. But as his body heals, his spirit seems to sink. He grows withdrawn, quiet. His smiles become rare. He stops joining the other men on the map. You find him one afternoon, staring out the window, his expression bleak. You stand beside him for a moment, following his gaze to the dusty, sun-baked yard. "You're looking stronger, Private," you say gently. He doesn't look at you. "Strong enough to get sent back, you mean?" he says, his voice flat and bitter. His words hit you with the force of a physical blow. You suddenly understand. He is terrified. He has survived the front once. He has survived his wounds. He does not believe he can survive it again. And so, he does not want to get better. His recovery has become his enemy. You are faced with a profound ethical dilemma. Your duty as a nurse is to heal, to return him to health. But to what end? To send him back into the inferno that nearly killed him and shattered the minds of men like Samuel? It feels like a betrayal. You choose your words carefully. "My duty, Private, is to help you heal. That's all. The rest is not up to me." You pause, then add softly, "But healing isn't just about your body. Your spirit needs to heal too. And fear. Fear is a kind of sickness. It can eat a man alive." You begin to work with him in a different way. You talk to him not about his wounds, but about his home in Ohio. You learn he was a carpenter, that he loved the smell of fresh-cut wood, the satisfaction of building something true and solid. You talk about that. You encourage him to help Sergeant Elias with small repair jobs around the ward, fixing a wobbly table, reinforcing the leg of a cot. You watch as working with his hands seems to ground him, to bring a flicker of his old self back into his eyes. You are not just healing a wound, you are trying to help him find a reason to want to be whole again, a reason that is stronger than his fear. During this time, your friendship with Isabel, the French laundrywoman, deepens. She sees the weariness in your eyes, the toll the summer is taking on you. One day, she presses a small piece of paper into your hand. It is an invitation. "Come to my home," she says in her soft, accented English. "Sunday, for lunch, you and your friends." The invitation is a precious, unexpected gift. That Sunday, you, Ada, and Mary walk to her small stone cottage on the edge of the village. It is a humble home, but it is filled with a fierce, loving pride. There is a small, vibrant garden in the back, overflowing with vegetables and flowers. The inside is dark and cool, a welcome respite from the sun. It smells of wood smoke, lavender, and stewing tomatoes. Isabel's husband was killed at Verdun 2 years earlier. Her 2 sons are at the front. She lives here with her elderly mother, a tiny woman with bright, intelligent eyes who sits by the fire, even in the summer heat. You share a simple meal of vegetable stew, fresh bread, and a little red wine. You communicate with a mixture of your broken French, her broken English, and the universal language of gestures and smiles. She shows you photographs of her sons, her handsome boys, their faces so full of life. She speaks of them with a mixture of immense pride and a deep, gut-wrenching fear that she tries to hide, but that you, as a nurse, can see so clearly in her eyes. In her small, quiet cottage, you are given a profound glimpse into the heart of France. You see the incredible resilience, the deep sorrow, and the enduring strength of the women who have kept the country running while their men are away at war. You are not an American nurse and she is not a French civilian. You are just women, sharing a meal, your lives linked by a war that has demanded so much from both of you. You see your own mother's worry in her eyes. She sees the weight you carry in the set of your shoulders. It is a moment of profound, unspoken connection, a quiet affirmation of a shared humanity that transcends nation and race. You walk back to the hospital in the golden light of the late afternoon, your spirit strangely refreshed. The visit has given you a new perspective. It has reminded you that your ward is just one small corner of a worldwide tapestry of suffering and endurance. As the summer wears on, you learn to cherish the small, quiet rituals that anchor your days. The first sip of coffee in the morning, shared in silence with Ada before the chaos of the day begins. The deep satisfaction of making a bed with perfect, crisp hospital corners. The quiet moment in the evening when you stand with Samuel by his garden, watching him gently water his plants as the sun sets. These small, mindful acts become a form of meditation, a way of staying present and grounded in a world that is filled with uncertainty and fear. But the exhaustion is real. It is a deep physical and emotional weariness that settles into your bones. There are nights you fall into your cot and feel as though you do not have the strength to ever get up again. There are moments in the middle of a shift when you feel a wave of despair so profound that it threatens to pull you under. In these moments, you rely on your sisters. You have learned to recognize the signs of exhaustion in each other, the slight tremor in Mary's hand, the dark circles under Ada's eyes. You learn to step in for each other without a word. You take over for a few minutes while one of you steps out for a breath of air. You share your rations when one of you is too tired to go to the mess hall. You offer a quiet word of encouragement, a hand on the shoulder. You are a 3-person army, fighting your own quiet war against burnout and despair. One sweltering afternoon, you feel yourself begin to falter. You are trying to soothe a young patient who is delirious with fever, and his thrashing and incoherent cries are wearing down your last reserves of patience and energy. You feel your composure begin to crack. You want to scream. You want to walk out the door and never come back. Ada sees it. She comes to your side, her presence calm and solid. "Go," she says softly. "I've got this. Take a walk. Cool off." You shake your head, wanting to protest, but she is firm. "Go. That's an order." You stumble out of the ward and into the blinding, oppressive heat. You walk to the small grove of trees behind the hospital and sink to the ground, your back against the rough bark of a pine tree. And you finally let the tears come. Silent tears of exhaustion, of frustration, of sorrow for all the things you cannot fix. You cry for the young boy in the ward, for Private Miller's fear, for Isabel's sons, for the endless, brutal waste of it all. You sit there for a long time, the tears washing you clean. When you are done, you feel empty, but also lighter. You take a few slow, deep breaths. You can smell the pine needles warmed by the sun. You can feel the solid earth beneath you. You are still here. You are tired, but you are not broken. You stand up, brush the dirt from your uniform, and walk back to the ward. You are ready to face the heat. You are ready to face the fear. You are ready to continue the fight. That night, as you lie in bed, you listen to the sound of the crickets, a steady pulsing rhythm in the hot, dark night. You think of the map, with its ever-advancing pins. Hope is a dangerous, fragile thing, but it is also powerful. It is the fuel that keeps you going. It is the light that guides you through the long, hot, and weary summer of the war. You close your eyes, and as you drift towards sleep, you hold on to that fragile hope with all your might. The oppressive heat of summer finally breaks. A great storm rolls through one night, a dramatic symphony of thunder and lightning and torrential rain that washes the dust from the world and scrubs the air clean. In the morning, a new season has arrived. Autumn. The air that drifts through the open windows of the ward is crisp and cool, carrying the sharp, clean scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. The quality of the light has changed again, returning to the soft, golden slant of the year's gentle decline. This shift in the seasons heralds a monumental shift in the war. The rumors are no longer just rumors, they are headlines. The Allied advance is no longer a slow crawl, but a relentless surge forward. On Sergeant Elias's map, the pins move every day, a steady march across the fields of France and Belgium. The names of liberated towns become a litany of hope chanted in the ward. The men, who had grown so weary, are now filled with a taut, electric energy. The end is no longer a distant dream. It feels close, so close you can almost taste it in the crisp autumn air. But with this hope comes a new, terrible trial. The Spanish influenza, which had seemed to loosen its grip, returns with a terrifying vengeance. It is a new, more virulent strain, and it sweeps through the camps and the civilian population like a wildfire. It is a cruel, incomprehensible irony. Just as the man-made war is reaching its conclusion, this invisible natural enemy launches its most deadly assault. The hospital is thrown back into a desperate, frantic battle. The wards fill up again, not with wounded men, but with those struck down by the fever. And this time, it is worse. The disease progresses with shocking speed, and it strikes the young and healthy with a terrifying ferocity. The celebration of military victories is muted, overshadowed by the immediate, life-and-death struggle happening within the hospital walls. For you and the other nurses, it is a return to a familiar nightmare, but intensified. The exhaustion you felt during the summer is nothing compared to this. You work double shifts, your sleep reduced to a few snatched, dreamless hours. You live in a haze of fatigue, your movements becoming automatic, your mind focused on the endless, repeating tasks, cooling fevers, administering fluids, cleaning soiled linens, and trying desperately to help men breathe whose lungs are failing them. You, Ada, and Mary become a self-contained unit, a whirlwind of efficient, compassionate care. You no longer need to speak to communicate. A glance, a gesture is enough. You know when one of you is faltering, and you step in to provide support. You hold each other up, physically and emotionally. You are each other's life raft in a sea of death and despair. One afternoon, in the midst of this renewed crisis, Private Miller, the carpenter who was so afraid of returning to the front, comes to you. He looks different. The fear that had haunted his eyes has been replaced by a quiet, steady resolve. "Nurse," he says, his voice clear, "put me to work. I can't just sit here." He is not a patient anymore. He is a survivor. The end of the war, though not yet official, has set him free. He knows he is not going back to the trenches. And now, seeing this new wave of suffering, he has found a new purpose. He cannot stand by and do nothing. You put him to work. He helps carry supplies. He sits with the dying, offering a hand to hold, a quiet word of comfort. He uses his carpentry skills to build more shelves, to repair broken cots, to bring order to the chaos. He has found his way back, not by ignoring the darkness, but by choosing to become a light within it. Samuel's garden becomes a small, quiet sanctuary amidst the frenzy. The autumn harvest has come. His small plot has yielded a surprising bounty of late-season vegetables, squash, beans, and hardy greens. He brings them to the hospital kitchen, a quiet offering, and he brings you small bouquets of the last blooming flowers, asters and chrysanthemums, their vibrant purples and yellows, a defiant splash of life against the gray backdrop of the hospital. His work of cultivating the earth has grounded him, healed him in a way no medicine could. He is quiet, and he will always carry his scars, but he is whole. Then, one cool November morning, the news arrives. It spreads through the hospital not as a rumor, but as a single, electrifying word. Armistice. An agreement has been signed. The fighting will stop. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, it is over. A strange, profound silence seems to fall over the entire world. In the ward, the men who are able to stand get out of their cots. They gather around the windows, staring out at the peaceful autumn day, as if seeing it for the first time. There are no loud cheers, no shouts of victory. The moment is too big for that, too sacred. It is a moment of deep, shuddering relief, so profound it is almost painful. You see Sergeant Elias leaning against the wall, his head bowed, his broad shoulders shaking with silent sobs. You see Private Miller with tears streaming down his face, not of fear, but of pure, unadulterated relief. You look at Ada, and her eyes are shining, a brilliant smile breaking through her exhausted expression. The war is over. The words repeat in your mind, but you can barely comprehend them. The defining reality of your entire adult life, the great grinding machine of death that has consumed the world, has simply stopped. Later that day, the sound of church bells begins to ring out from the village of Talents, a joyous, clanging peal that echoes across the fields. The sound is taken up by other churches, in other villages. It is a wave of sound, a wave of joy, spreading across France. You stand outside the barracks, listening, the cool autumn air on your cheeks. And you finally allow yourself to feel the sheer, overwhelming relief of it all. You have survived. The men you have cared for have survived. You are going to go home. But the joy is bittersweet. Because inside the hospital, the other war, the war against the influenza, still rages. The bells of peace are a cruel counterpoint to the sounds of the ward. It is a surreal, heartbreaking reality. The world is celebrating, but you are still in the trenches, fighting for every single breath. That night the work was harder than ever. It feels almost unbearable to be surrounded by so much death on the very day that peace has been declared. You are holding the hand of a young soldier, barely 20 years old, his body racked with fever. He is delirious, calling for his mother. You know he is not going to make it through the night. You feel a wave of anger, of profound, bitter injustice. It isn't fair. He survived the war, only to be killed by this. The world has found peace, but he will never know it. Your exhaustion is so deep that you feel yourself becoming numb, the walls you built around your heart turning to ice. Ada comes to stand beside you. She places a hand on your shoulder. "Don't lose him," she whispers, and you know she's not just talking about the patient. She's talking about you. Don't lose yourself to the darkness. You take a deep breath, and you look at the young man's face. You see not just a victim of the pandemic, but a son, a brother, a young man with a life that was lived, however short. You hold his hand tighter. You begin to hum a soft spiritual, a melody your grandmother used to sing. You will not let him die alone, surrounded by the cold, clinical reality of the ward. You will surround him with peace. You will be his mother, his sister, his connection to a world of love in his final moments. The next few weeks are a blur. The influenza pandemic finally begins to recede, leaving behind a wake of devastation and a profound sense of communal grief. But as the sickness wanes, a new purpose emerges. The hospital is no longer a place for healing the wounds of war. It is now a processing center for the journey home. The conversations in the ward change completely. The men no longer talk of battles and strategy. They talk of train schedules and steamships. They talk about the first meal they will eat when they get home. They talk about seeing their mothers, their wives, their children. But underneath the excitement, there is a current of anxiety. "What are we gonna do now?" a young soldier asked Sergeant Elias one evening. "I ain't a farmer. I ain't got a trade. All I know is how to be a soldier." "You know how to survive," Sergeant Elias tells him, his voice firm. "You survived the trenches. You survived this sickness. You can survive anything America throws at you. You just gotta remember what we did here, how we looked out for each other. We gotta keep doing that when we get back home. We're all we've got." You listen to these conversations, and you feel your own anxieties mirrored in their words. You are no longer just a nurse with a temporary wartime commission. You are a woman who has commanded respect, who has saved lives, who has found her voice. What will happen to that voice when you step back onto the segregated shores of America? The thought is a disquieting cloud on the horizon of your joyous return. But for now, there is work. The work of preparing these men for their future. You are not just discharging patients, you are launching them back into the world. You are sending them home as whole as you can make them, their bodies healed, their spirits tended. It is the final and perhaps most important phase of your mission. As you lie in your cot at night, the autumn air growing colder, you feel a sense of profound completion, mixed with a deep uncertainty. The war is over. Your part in it is almost done. You have been tested by fire, by sickness, by prejudice, by exhaustion. And you are still standing. You are not the same woman who arrived on these shores. You are stronger, wiser, and more certain of your own power and purpose than you have ever been. The future is a great unknown, but you are not afraid. You are ready for the journey home. The great, frantic engine of the hospital has wound down. The desperate, high-pitched hum of crisis has been replaced by a low, quiet thrum of bureaucracy. The war is over. The flu has retreated, leaving behind deep scars and a profound quiet. And now there is only the waiting. It is a strange, suspended state of being, a chapter after the climax of the story, but before the epilogue. The hospital has transformed from a place of urgent healing into a massive departure lounge. And you are all travelers in limbo, waiting for the ships that will take you home. The days in Ward C are no longer a blur of life and death struggle. They are slow, ordered, and filled with a sense of finality. Your work now consists of signing discharge papers, of checking final medical records, of packing away supplies that will no longer be needed. The ward, once filled to overflowing with cots, begins to empty. Each day, another small group of men receives their orders. They are heading to Brest or to Saint-Nazaire, the port cities from which the great ships will depart. They are going home. Each departure is a small, bittersweet ceremony. The men, dressed now in clean, mended uniforms, come to you and the other nurses to say their goodbyes. They are awkward, their words fumbling, their emotions worn plainly on their faces. They are no longer just patients. They are friends, brothers, sons. You have seen them at their absolute worst, and you have helped guide them back to their best. The bond is deep, and the goodbyes are heavy with unspoken gratitude. The day Sergeant Elias is set to leave is a particularly poignant one. He has been the rock of the ward, its elder statesman. He walks through the ward, shaking every man's hand. When he comes to you, he takes both of your hands in his own. His are large and calloused, the hands of a farmer, but his touch is gentle. "I don't have the words, nurse," he says, his deep voice thick with emotion. He looks at you, then at Ada and Mary standing beside you. "You three, you are our light in the darkness. Don't ever let anyone tell you differently. When you get home, don't let them dim that light. You hear me?" "We won't, Sergeant," you promise, your own voice quiet. "We hear you." He nods, satisfied. "You get home safe now." He turns and walks out of the ward without looking back, his posture straight and proud. You watch him go, feeling a profound sense of loss, but also an immense pride. You have sent a good man home to his family. Samuel Jones's departure is quieter. On his last day, he takes you to his garden. It is mostly dormant now, sleeping under a thin blanket of autumn leaves. But he has cleared one small patch, and in the dark, rich soil, he has planted rows of garlic. "For the spring," he says, looking at the earth. "Something for whoever comes next." It is the most hopeful gesture you can imagine. He is not just leaving, he is planting a seed for the future. He gives you a small, smooth stone from the edge of his garden. "So you don't forget us," he says. "Never," you reply, closing your hand around the stone, its coolness a solid, tangible link to him, to this place, to all you have been through. You know you must also say goodbye to Isabel. You, Ada, and Mary walk to her cottage one last time, bearing a small gift, a bar of precious chocolate you have saved. She welcomes you in. Her home is warm and fragrant as you remember. The news has come that one of her sons is safe. The other is still missing. She lives, as so many do, in a state of suspended hope and grief. You sit with her, not needing many words. You share a cup of herbal tea. You show her photographs of your families. She shows you the worn letters from her sons. In this quiet, shared space, you acknowledge the deep, common thread of your experiences. You have all been women touched by this war, your lives forever altered by it. When you leave, she hugs each of you tightly. "Bonne chance," she whispers. "Good luck." It is a blessing, a farewell, and a prayer, all in one. As the ward grows emptier, the silence becomes more profound. One evening, after your duties are done, you walk through the long, quiet room alone. The low golden light of the setting sun streams through the windows, illuminating the rows of empty cots, their mattresses stripped bare. This room, which has held so much pain, so much fear, so much life, is now just a room. But for you, it is a sacred space. You run your hand along the metal frame of an empty cot. You can almost feel the echoes of the past. You see the face of the young boy from Alabama who didn't make it. You hear the delirious cries of the men in the grip of the flu. You feel the frantic energy of the night you helped save the officer. You see Samuel, sitting silently, lost in his trauma. You see Sergeant Elias, standing tall, a beacon of hope. You have been remade in this room. The woman you were when you arrived, so full of idealistic fervor and nervous uncertainty, is gone. In her place is a woman who understands the true, bone-deep meaning of resilience. A woman who knows the weight of life and the finality of death. A woman who has discovered the quiet, formidable power of her own voice, her own hands. You stand in the silence and you say a quiet thank you. To the room, to the memories, to the woman you have become. In the long, quiet evenings of waiting, you and your sister nurses finally have time to talk, to truly process the whirlwind of the past year. You sit in your small room, the pot-bellied stove glowing warmly, and you sift through your experiences. You talk about the men you lost, finally allowing yourselves to grieve them properly. You talk about the moments of fear and the moments of grace, and you talk about the future. Ada is more determined than ever to go to medical school. Her experience here has ignited a fire in her. "They need us," she says, her eyes burning with intensity. "Our people. They need doctors who see them as whole human beings, not just as bodies. We have to be those doctors." Mary speaks of wanting to work in public health, to take the lessons learned here about sanitation and disease prevention, and bring them to the communities back home that need them most. And you find yourself thinking about teaching. You think of the instructors who trained you, the stern, brilliant women who prepared you for this. You want to be one of them. You want to take everything you have learned, not just the clinical skills, but the lessons in compassion, in advocacy, in courage, and pass them on to a new generation of black nurses. You want to prepare them not just for the ward, but for the world. The arrival of your own travel orders is almost an anticlimax. A white officer reads your names from a list, his tone indifferent. You are to travel by train to the coast, where a transport ship awaits. The paperwork makes it clear, the transport will be segregated. You and your fellow black nurses will have separate inferior quarters. After a year of being respected as skilled, essential professionals, even if grudgingly at times, this is a cold, hard slap of reality. It is a stark reminder of the America that is waiting for you. You look at Ada, and you see the same fire in her eyes that you feel in your own heart. There is no anger, no surprise, just a quiet, hardening resolve. The fight is not over. It is just changing locations. On your last morning, you take one final walk around the hospital grounds. The air is cold and sharp, and the trees are completely bare now, their stark branches etched against a pale winter sky. The vineyards are sleeping, the land is quiet, resting, waiting for spring. You walk past Samuel's garden, its dormant soil holding the promise of future life. You think of your arrival, standing on the docks in Brest, so full of uncertainty. This foreign land, which was once so strange and intimidating, has become a part of you. You have left a piece of your own spirit in this soil, and you will carry a piece of it with you forever. You climb into the back of the army truck that will take you to the train station. As it rumbles down the long drive, you look back at the sprawling stone buildings of the hospital. It has been your home, your university, your battlefield. It is the place where you lost your innocence and found your strength. You reach into your pocket and your fingers close around the smooth, cool stone that Samuel gave you. You hold it tight. It is a reminder. You will not forget. You will not be silent. You are going home, not in defeat, but in victory. A quiet, personal victory that no one can ever take away from you. The journey is just beginning. The train that takes you away from Bordeaux feels different from the one that brought you here. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the track is the same, a soothing, familiar mantra. But this time, you are not moving towards the unknown. You are moving away from a world that has become as familiar as your own skin. You sit by the window, watching the landscape of your year in France scroll by for the last time. The vineyards, bare and sleeping, look peaceful. The stone villages, with their ancient churches and slate roofs, seem to nod a silent, knowing farewell. You see the countryside not with the eyes of a nervous newcomer, but with the fond gaze of someone leaving a piece of their heart behind. You see the fields where French women and old men still work, their backs bent, their movements slow and steady. The war is over, but the work of recovery, of rebuilding, has just begun. You feel a deep, quiet kinship with them, with this land that knows so much of sorrow and endurance. You and your sister nurses do not speak much on this journey. There is a shared understanding that this is a time for quiet, personal reflection. Ada reads a book on anatomy, already preparing for her next great battle. Mary stares out the window, her expression soft and thoughtful. You hold the small, smooth stone from Samuel's garden in your pocket, its coolness a tangible anchor to the memories you are carrying. You are no longer just carrying your small canvas bag. You are carrying the weight and the grace of 1,000 moments, 1,000 lives you have touched. The arrival in the port city of Saint-Nazaire is a jarring shock to the system. After the quiet, ordered world of the emptying hospital, the city is a churning, chaotic sea of khaki. Tens of thousands of American soldiers are crammed into the city, all waiting. The air is thick with their restless energy, a mixture of elation, impatience, and anxiety. The streets are a cacophony of shouting voices, rumbling trucks, and the distant, mournful horns of the great ships in the harbor. This is where the gentle farewell of the French countryside gives way to the harsh, familiar reality of American segregation. You are guided not to the main transit barracks, but to a separate, hastily constructed camp on the muddy outskirts of the city. The barracks are colder, damper, and more crowded than any you stayed in before. The food in your designated mess hall is scarcer, of poorer quality. The white military police who patrol the area look at you with a cold indifference, their authority absolute and unquestioned. You see the looks on the faces of the black soldiers here. They are the men of the labor battalions, the stevedores, the men who did the heavy, back-breaking work of the war with little glory. They have been waiting the longest to go home, their service deemed less critical than that of the white combat troops who are given priority on the departing ships. You see their frustration, their simmering anger, their weary resignation. And you see your own feelings reflected in their eyes. In the hospital, your uniform and your skill had earned you a measure of professional respect. You were Matron Davis's best nurses, a surgeon's unexpected lifeline. Here, in this sea of anonymous, uniformed bodies, you are once again reduced to the color of your skin. You are simply black women to be managed, to be segregated, to be sent to the back of the line. The injustice of it is a bitter pill to swallow. One evening, Mary returns to the barracks, her face pale with anger. She had gone to the main infirmary to request some aspirin for a headache and was made to wait for over an hour, only to be told by a white clerk that she needed to go to the colored aid station, a poorly supplied tent on the other side of the camp. "After everything we've done," she says, her voice trembling with rage. "After the lives we saved, they treat us like we are nothing, like we are a disease." Ida places a firm hand on her shoulder. Her own eyes are like chips of flint. "Let this fuel you, Mary," she says, her voice low and intense. "Don't let it break you. Let it make you stronger. Every time they do this, they are showing us exactly why our work back home will be so important. They are reminding us what we are fighting for." You listen to Ada, and you feel your own anger clarifying, hardening into a cold, diamond-hard resolve. She is right. This is not just an insult. It is a clarification of your mission. You will not let their prejudice diminish you. You will carry your dignity like a shield. You and the other nurses instinctively close ranks. You walk through the camp together, your posture perfect, your heads held high. You maintain your uniforms with meticulous care, your professionalism a silent rebuke to those who would see you as less than. You are a small island of order and dignity in a sea of chaos and injustice. You are a testament to each other, and you draw strength from that shared, defiant pride. Finally, after days of waiting, your unit's name is called. You are to board the USS Agamemnon, a captured German ocean liner now serving as a massive troop transport. You march in formation to the docks, through the cheering, restless crowds of soldiers. The ship is immense, a city of steel looming over the quay, its great funnels stark against the grey sky. You watch as the white soldiers board first, a seemingly endless river of men flowing up the gangplanks. You wait. You stand for hours on the cold, damp cobblestones, your small bags at your feet. Finally, it is your turn. You are directed to a separate, narrower gangplank at the stern of the ship. As you begin your ascent, you turn and take one last look at France. The grey stone buildings of the port, the distant rolling hills, the sky that holds the memory of so many sunrises and sunsets you have witnessed. A wave of emotion washes over you. Gratitude, sorrow, a profound sense of connection to this land that has been the backdrop for the most transformative year of your life. It is the place where you became yourself. You whisper a silent au revoir, a promise that you will not forget. The quarters you are assigned are exactly what you expected. They are deep in the hull of the ship, in the least desirable section. They are cramped, poorly ventilated, and loud with the constant, vibrating thrum of the ship's massive engines. But you and your friends set about making the small space your own. You unpack your few things, you make up your narrow bunks with neat, precise corners. You create order in your small corner of the ship, just as you have always done. As the great ship pulls away from the dock, you find a place on the deck reserved for the black troops. You stand at the rail, the cold, salty wind whipping at your cloak. You watch as the coastline of France, the last tangible piece of your European life, grows fainter and fainter, eventually melting into the grey horizon, and then there is only the sea. The ocean voyage is a long, monotonous journey. The days are all the same, marked only by the shifting light on the water. The ship is a world unto itself, a floating capsule of segregated America. You have your designated mess times, your designated deck space. You are a small, separate community within the larger vessel. But the journey is also a gift. It is a time for quiet, a time for processing. There are no patients to care for, no administrative duties to perform. There is only the endless expanse of the ocean and the time to finally, truly reflect. You spend hours staring at the churning grey-green water, your mind drifting back over the past year. You think of the faces, the names, the stories. You feel the phantom weight of a dying soldier's hand in yours. You hear the echo of a carol sung on Christmas Eve. You smell the pine needles and the antiseptic of the ward. You taste the fresh bread from the village market. The memories are sharp, vivid, and powerful. You allow them to wash over you, not pushing them away. You are integrating your experiences, weaving them into the fabric of who you are now. You are no longer a collection of experiences. You are a story of service, of resilience, of a quiet, unyielding fight for dignity in the face of prejudice and war. One evening, you are standing on the deck with Ada, watching the sun sink into the vast, empty ocean, painting the clouds in brilliant streaks of orange and purple. "Are you scared?" you ask her softly. "About going back?" She is quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "No," she says finally. "I'm not scared. I'm ready. France taught me what was possible. America will be the place where we make it real." You look out at the endless water, the same ocean you crossed with so much fear and uncertainty over a year ago. You are crossing it again now, but you are a different woman. You are not a nervous girl hoping to serve. You are a veteran, a professional, a leader. You have faced down death and despair, and you have won. You have found your power, not in a loud and dramatic fashion, but in the quiet, steady, day-by-day application of your skill, your compassion, and your grace. You are heading home, back to a country that may not be ready for the woman you have become, but you are ready for it. The sea journey is a baptism, a cleansing, a preparation. With every nautical mile that passes, you feel your purpose becoming clearer, your resolve stronger. You are ready for the next battle. You are ready for the fight for your future. Of course. Let us complete this journey together. Find your comfortable place, close your eyes, and allow the story to carry you home, to a new beginning. The rhythm of the sea, which has been your constant companion, begins to change. There is a subtle shift in the air, a new scent carried on the wind, a scent of land, a scent of pine and soil and smoke. It is the scent of home. A cry goes up from the soldiers on the deck, a ripple of excitement that spreads throughout the massive ship. Land has been sighted. You join the others at the railing, your heart beginning to beat a little faster. You squint at the horizon, and there it is, a long, low, dark line between the gray of the sea and the pale blue of the sky. America. It seems impossible that it is real. After everything, after the fields of France and the wards of the hospital and the endless, timeless expanse of the ocean, you are finally here. As the ship draws closer, the details of the coastline become clearer. And then you see her, rising from the morning mist, a familiar, iconic silhouette, the Statue of Liberty. You watch as she grows larger, her torch held high, her copper skin turned a pale green by the elements. A wave of complex emotion washes over you, so powerful it almost takes your breath away. You remember seeing pictures of her in school books, a symbol of welcome, of freedom, of hope for the tired and the poor. You look at her now, not as a naive schoolgirl, but as a woman who has seen the deep contradictions of the world. You have served your country, fought for the very ideals she represents, all while being denied the full promise of her welcome. You feel a surge of love for your country, a deep, primal connection to this land. But it is a complicated love, tempered by the painful awareness of its injustices. You look at the statue and you make a silent vow. You will fight to make her promise real, for yourself and for your people. The Port of New York is a dizzying, overwhelming spectacle of organized chaos. Tugs guide your massive ship towards the docks, their horns blaring. The piers are crowded with people, a sea of waving hands and cheering faces. Families, mothers, fathers, wives, and sweethearts, all craning their necks, their faces alight with joy and relief, searching for their returning hero. But you know none of them are searching for you. Your arrival is a more solitary, more regimented affair. The process of disembarkation is long and tedious. Once again, you wait. You watch as the white soldiers, the combat troops, leave the ship first, to the sounds of brass bands and jubilant cheers. When it is finally your turn, you walk down the gangplank, not to the arms of a waiting family, but to the curt orders of another set of military police, who direct you and the other black service members to a separate, quieter part of the docks. From there, you are taken to a demobilization camp. Here the final threads of your military life are unraveled. You stand in long lines, You fill out endless forms. You are given a final physical examination, your final pay, and a train ticket home. It is a sterile, impersonal process, a bureaucratic end to a deeply personal and transformative journey. The most surreal moment is when you are officially discharged and you return to your barracks to take off your uniform for the last time. This uniform, this coarse blue wool, this starched white apron and cap, it has been your identity for more than a year. It was your armor, your shield, your symbol of purpose. You fold it neatly, your hands moving with a reverence you didn't expect to feel. As you put on the simple civilian dress you have kept stored away, you feel strangely light, untethered. You look at yourself in the small, cloudy mirror. You are a civilian again, but you are not the same civilian who enlisted so long ago. The uniform is gone, but the strength, the discipline, the quiet authority it gave you remains. It is part of you now, woven into your very soul. The hardest moment of all is saying goodbye. You, Ada, and Mary are being sent to different train stations, your paths finally diverging. You stand together for one last time on the campgrounds, the sounds of a bustling, indifferent America all around you. There are no grand speeches. There is no need. Everything that matters is understood between you. Ada, ever practical, writes down her address in Philadelphia. "When I open my practice," she says, "and you know it is a statement of fact, not a dream, the first invitation will be for you two." Mary, her eyes wet with tears, hugs you both tightly. "Write to me," she whispers. "Don't you dare be strangers. You embrace them, your sisters, your comrades. You have held each other up through the darkest of times. You have been each other's mirror, reflecting a strength you didn't know you had. We're bonded for life, you say, your voice thick with emotion. Nothing will ever change that. And then you have to turn and walk away. The parting is a physical ache, a tearing of something that has become essential to your being. You find yourself on a train, heading south. It is a segregated car, just as you knew it would be. The seats are less comfortable, the air is thicker, but you hardly notice. You are looking out the window, watching the American landscape roll by. It is vast, so different from the compact ancient fields of France, the farms, the towns, the cities. It is all familiar, yet you are seeing it with new eyes. You are seeing the deep, unspoken history in the landscape. You are seeing the promise, and you are seeing the pain. You are seeing the work that needs to be done, your work. You reach into your pocket, and your fingers find the two small, hard objects you have carried with you. The smooth, cool stone from Samuel's garden, a reminder of the lives you tended and the quiet power of healing. And the small, crudely carved wooden bird from Private Thomas, a symbol of gratitude and humanity that can flourish in the darkest of places. You hold them in your palm. They are your talismans, your proof. The journey is long. You have hours to think, to reflect, to simply be. You are no longer a nurse. You are not yet the next version of yourself. You are in between. And in this quiet, in-between space, you feel a profound sense of peace. You did not stop the war. You did not cure the pandemic. But you did your work. You showed up day after day. You offered your skill, your compassion, your steady hands. You eased suffering. You held dignity intact. You were a light in the darkness for men who were lost and scared. You looked prejudice in the face and refused to be diminished by it. You learned that your power was not in changing the world, but in creating a small corner of it that was decent and kind and full of grace. The train whistle blows, a long, lonely sound that echoes across the fields. You are getting closer to home. You don't know what awaits you. You don't know if your family will understand the woman you have become. You don't know how you will fit into a world that has not changed as much as you have. But you are not afraid. You lean your head against the cool glass of the window, and you watch the world go by. You have been tested by fire, and you have emerged not burned, but forged. You are strong. You are ready. Your next journey, the long journey of your life, is just beginning. And you are ready to meet it. You close your eyes, and for the first time in a long, long time, You feel a gentle, hopeful sense of peace. You are home.